Mine is a concern. I'm against these things called exemptions and waivers. When people decide to do business in a sector, the government's business is to give them an environment in which to operate. And so my view is that we should repeal these exemptions, particularly on VAT, unless persuaded otherwise, so that we let people who want to engage in business in the sector buy vehicles, buy things. I'm seeing even utensils, chair, even utensils. In the last part, there is a category of goods there. Furniture, kitchenware, carpets. And in the context of vehicles, I'm against them because the exemptions in terms of the provisions relating to these vehicles is not even enforceable. How do we know when a vehicle is being exclusively used for tourism purposes? You'll be taking people to Masai Mara 1 minute, Kaluma and see speakers on them. In Homa Bay, I just need to pay them for that season. How do we enforce? And so I'm saying, Chair, that unless there is clarity, let us move the nation to a point where an environment that is equal is established for all Kenyans, and people choose the business lines they have to engage in, while also, not unduly limiting government's revenue sources. Thank you, Chair.
It's going to appear for us on Monday, and so we agreed that seriously Kenya will come on Monday. But today we have officials from tourism, from marketing, and from sports. We want to hear their views on these particular clauses. So we listened.
They're still getting instructions.
Special thanks goes to all the members that led the various teams. Professionally and competent. Left. One, remember they are that stakeholders are telling us if this happens and this is what we're going to do. That stakeholders are telling us if this happens and this is what we're going to do. To the members of the Finance National Planning Committee, we are at the tail end of public for Molo and the chairperson of the committee. On behalf of the Secretariat,
when purchasing locally assembled vehicles. And this
tourism is a very sensitive sector, and any action can really mess up the tourism sector research. But I'm worried because the numbers of tourists coming to this country annually seem to have stagnated to around 2 million, 3 million. I remember when I was working in National Bureau of Statistics, around 2005 is when we hit 1 million tourists. From there, the numbers have been going down. They have been slightly increasing in a very good way. But now when you look at other tourist destinations like Dubai, when you go to Dubai, I don't know what you go to see there. Apart from that tall building, Bush Sharif, and the desert safari. What else do people go to see in Dubai? And you see, because even that desert safari chairman, we can still have one. We go to Chambi Desert, I think Amaturugana, yeah? The Turkana, the Eli what? Yeah, there's a resort called Eli Resort, something like that. I've been there, by the way. Turkana has some of the best clean beach in this country. If you have not been there, honorable, very clean, very clean. But you see, we have been relying on our old traditional tourist attractions. You are not going to tell me a white man will be coming here for 10 years to come and see the lions and leopards and elephants, which at the same time they have conflicts with Maasai's in Mala. So what plans do you have? And we have tourist promotion funds, we have other funds. What, before we even look at this, because to me this is a benefit to some people, not to this country. What plans do you have to develop new tourism destinations in the country? On local tourism. And I'll tell you for free, the tourist sector, as it stands now, is being supported by the locals, not even the white people. When we came here from yesterday, we have not even seen any white person, just black people. Yeah. So what? And you don't expect black people to go and see animals. No. We may go for safari in Turkana. We need, it's new things. What plans as a ministry you have to develop this thing?
I have two issues to raise to the peers. The first issue I want to ask the peers, what is the position of competitiveness or destination competitiveness of Kenya around the East African community? What's the position? Secondly, the correlation between travel, the cost of traveling by tourists within our jurisdiction, and its impact to the number of tourists. Does it bar the cost bar tourists coming to Kenya or visiting Kenya? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I will be able to go straight to the questions. First of all, before I go to each and every question, I would like to indicate that the sentiments of the honorable members are very important, and they highlight the importance of this discussion. And I think that's why you invited us so that we can be able to discuss. The first one.
Sorry, please, lastly, the issue of these park fees that are charged by county governments. Because one of the complaints we've got from the sector is our parks are becoming much more expensive than those of our neighbors. And remember, a tourist that wants to come to see a wild beast doesn't really much care whether he sees it in Masai Mara or in Serengeti. And so if then our park fees are much more expensive than that of our neighbor, then those tourists will go to neighboring countries.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman. So the first clarification was on other countries, the incentives, whether they are VAT. From the data that we have, which I think the Tourism Regulatory Authority can still be able to confirm further, is that the exemption is on VAT. But that one, unless I dig much more into the clear report on that, on what exactly they exempt, I think the report I went through is that they do exempt VAT, but I think that there might be need to further clarify that on that particular. So I'll be able to give a proper answer to that particularly. The other one is on actionable data. That one is available with the Tourism Regulatory Authority. I did give the data just for January to May, which indicated that we are given an exemption, particularly to the tour operators, the vehicles particularly. Because the one that is much more active is the one on the vehicles. The one on the construction of tourism facilities has not been active at all. I mean, it looks like there has not been very much utilized. But the one on the vehicles is so much utilized every year that I would ask the tourism regulator to we can affect the data, particularly that even for the last 4 or 5 years, we can be able to get the entire data on the total amounts of exemption per year in relation to the tour operators' vehicles. But for this year, between January and May, we were able to exempt up to a total of 49.03 million. And honorable member, we can members, we can be able to give the data from the TRA per year. The other question was on the issue of the other exemptions on cutlery and other equipment. Those ones are under the EAC, the East Africa Community Act. I think there is an act that specifically outlines those exemptions that relates to linen, cutlery, furniture, fridges, and just to mention a few. So that one is not under the VAT, but it's under the customs duty. I think customs duty under the EAC Act. And that one applies across the East African region. So all the hotels that do import, and this is particularly for importation of those kind of materials to be able to be used in the hotel sector. The other question from the honorable member was how do we know whether a vehicle is exclusively for tourism? Now, first of all, we follow a very, very thorough process before one is classified. You have to get a tourism license, a license from the tourism regulatory authority. So we for all those that have been able to be assessed and regulated by the TRA, you can only get this exemption if you have a tourism license. And there's a way the tourism regulatory authority, in liaison with the tourism police unit and all the agencies, they are able to exclusively know that this is a tourism vehicle and the purposes that are being used for tourism. The law even goes ahead to explain what happens if it is discovered that we are not using it for tourism, then the license is withdrawn by the tourism regulatory authority, and therefore you will not get the exemptions. So the tourism regulatory authority does a lot of thorough work to register these tour operators.
PS, before you,
yes.
What of these things you say are under East African customs? How do you ensure that they are exclusively used in the tourism industry?
Thank you very much, Honorable Karuma. We, first of all the hotels are actually licensed by the tourism regulatory authority. So there is no, you have to have a tourism license for you to qualify for that. So all the hotels that have applied and have been registered by the tourism regulatory authority, so when they apply for these exemptions and they are given that exemption, the tourism regulatory authority is able also to inspect the hotels because they actually, from time to time, visit the hotels to see what they are doing. And so they can only qualify if they are registered. Otherwise, if they are not registered, they cannot qualify to be given that particular. And then items also have to be branded at source with the name of the hotel. Because you see, if it is, let's say, Safari Park Hotel, and they have applied for exemption, the items must be branded to that particular name before they are actually imported to the country. But in case at a later stage, if at all there is anything to add that I may have skipped, the tourism regulatory authority is also here. That's why I brought them, so that if there is anything that is much more detailed that wants the explanation, with your permission, they can be able to do. Honorable Chair, the other issue is on the destination competitiveness around the East African region. We have been doing a lot of marketing by the Kenya Tourism Board, and so far our position is still, I would say it's good. We are still very competitive in terms of what we offer in the tourism sector. But of course, in tourism, as I said, there is a lot of competition, which depends on how you treat the visitors when they come, the experience they receive right from the airport all the way to the national parks or game reserves or whichever areas they are visiting, the kind of reception they get and so on. So this is something that has to be improved always from time to time, because even though we are very competitive, but if we slacken a bit, then you will find that you can be easily overtaken. But so far we are doing well, and we are doing our best in terms of being competitive. The issue of the cost of traveling, we have the Kenya Tourism Federation, and we have a number of associations under the Kenya Tourism Federation. For example, we have the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers, we have the Kenya Association of Travel Agents, we also have the Kenya Association of Tour Operators, we have the tour guides, and so on. And from time to time, we have roundtables, discussions with them to look at the cost, to look at what's happening. Apart from the complaint about the fees in the parks, we have not received a lot of complaints in relation to the cost of traveling, which you have asked whether this cost can bar the tourists visiting Kenya. So far, we haven't gotten any drastic kind of report that that any particular cost may have barred the visitors coming to Kenya. But we have always had a lot of discussions whenever there is any issue on the cost, so that if there is an issue, then we discuss. Because tourism is likely a private sector driven. Most of the facilities or whatever, they are actually private owned. But even though they are privately owned, they impact very, very significantly on the Kenyan people in terms of employment, in terms of the value chain that they bring, and so on. So we're also very keen on the price, and whenever there is an issue, we normally discuss. The other very important question that the honorable member asked also is on the number of tourists. I agree with you totally. I think for the last very many years, we have consistently remained at around 2 million. I think the highest that we had was in 2019, where we had 2.04 million tourists, international of course. We have the domestic arrivals, which of course we also tabulate, but what we have reported here is international arrivals, and it is true, because the highest, I think, in 2019 was 2.04, and then after COVID-19 it came down to 870, and then it again in 2022 it went up to 1.4 million, and then of course in 2023 it went to 2.086 million, and in 2024 it went to 2.4 million. So 2.4 million actually is the highest, but I agree with you that really there are many countries that are receiving 20 million, 17 million, 10 million, and this explains the next question that you have asked is really, what are we doing to ensure that we don't continue rotating around the 2 million that we have rotated for many, many years? And Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, I may not be able to go to all of them, but let me mention a few. For a long time, Kenya has been concentrating on safari. I mean, the wild animals and the beach as the major attractions in the country. But we have, under the guidance of my Cabinet Secretary, we have now taken measures to diversify the tourism attractions. In other words, we are looking at cultural tourism. How do we work together with the counties to even document these cultural festivals and other cultural elements that can be marketed by KTB, so that people can even visit the country just to come and see our cultural festivals and our cultural heritage. We are also considering looking at heritage sites, I think, which we have not utilized in Kenya, because when you go to other countries, you will go to some museums, some mosques, some temples that were built many years ago, and people are flocking there to see them. We are also looking at how we can look at our heritage sites and market them. We are also looking at agro-tourism as an element of diversification of tourism, medical tourism, nature and adventure, where we are looking at the trails, that we are developing. But above all, we are also looking at the MICE sector, how we can encourage the construction of convention centers, conference facilities, so that we can attract many international meetings, which in actual fact will also add to the numbers.
I just want to know from the PS what revenue, the level of revenue tourism brings to the exchequer annually. Has it grown, if at all, we receive anything? Or secondly, I also want to agree with the Mheshimiwa Peter Kaluma that the government requires every cent that we can get. So if we go into too many exemptions, I think we will be losing the much needed revenue that the country requires for development. So is it not possible for the Ministry of Tourism to exactly look at the areas the government can receive revenue and the areas that should be exempted, not the full-scale exemption?
Like for example, these tourism vehicles, if we move them from zero rate to exempt as proposed in the bill. And secondly, can you demonstrate to this committee that this particular, let me call it quote-unquote exemption, the fact that it leads to tax expenditure, are you able to demonstrate that that benefit is transferred to the users and to the sector? PS?